Hello, I'm Dr. Teitelbaum, and today we're going to talk about depression. Now, depression affects 1 in 15 adults in any given year, and 1 in 6 people will experience depression at some time in their life. Depression can occur at any time, but on average it first appears during the late teens to the mid-20s, and women are more likely than men to experience depression. And about 1/3 of women will experience a major depressive episode in their lifetime. Now, symptoms of depression can vary from mild to severe, and they could include feeling sad or having a depressed mood, loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, including weight loss or weight gain, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, and even thoughts of death or suicide. Now, it's been said that genetics may play a role, and while this might be true for all diseases, and not just with depression, the real truth is that the genes we've inherited are actually lying dormant, but they need some triggers which we create through mistakes in our diet and daily routines in order for them to wake up and start expressing themselves. So here's the thing, as with all diseases that we see, always remember that the underlying causes need to be addressed, and that these underlying causes are usually numerous and they're different in each person. It's always important to identify the mistakes you might be making, which are causing your sleeping genes to wake up and start expressing themselves. And this is especially true for depression. Many of the common treatments for depression revolve around modifying one's brain chemistry. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are called SSRIs, are usually the first choice of medication for treating depression, and they work by slowing up the reabsorption of the neurotransmitter serotonin. And serotonin is a chemical which helps to regulate the mood and anxiety. This way, the serotonin can remain in the bloodstream longer, easing up the depression. Now, it's important to know that there are numerous other medications beside the SSRIs to help alleviate symptoms of depression, and these medications could be life-saving if you or your loved one is threatening suicide. But we should also take a look at the underlying causes of depression and learn how to address them so that we could either prevent the depression from coming in the first place, or if you're already on antidepressants, perhaps over time with the help of your doctor, you could slowly wean off of it. And as with everything else that we treat in Ayurveda, we always want to treat and trace any and all imbalances first to improper digestion. Here's the way it works. Once we swallow the food and it goes through the digestive tract, it has to be broken down into smaller and smaller particles until it enters the bloodstream. From there, the food spends 3 to 5 days in each tissue before moving on to the next tissue until all the 7 tissues of the body are nourished. The 7 tissues are the blood plasma, the blood, muscle, fat, bone, bone marrow, and reproductive fluids. Now, this is very important. At the end of the 7th tissue, you then make a compound called Ojas. And Ojas is the neurotransmitters and the hormones, and it gives you great strength, stamina, and immunity to disease. But keep this in mind. Your neurotransmitters and hormones dictate the way you feel. If you're happy or depressed, if you're lethargic or energetic, hyper or calm. So in order to have good Ojas, or balanced hormones and neurotransmitters, first your digestion of the food must be complete, and the food itself must be nourishing, wholesome, and freshly prepared. Many of the teenagers I see have poor digestion due to the high amounts of pharmaceuticals they're given from the time they're born. This is because the vaccines and the antibiotics destroy the friendly bacteria in the gut, and they make the liver very hot, reactive, and toxic. And to make matters worse, the diets of our children are quite deficient, especially if the child turns toward processed foods. And to add insult to injury, the friendly bacteria in the gut make 90% of the neurotransmitters that the brain needs to function properly. No wonder so many of our teenagers are depressed, between their poor gut microbiome combined with their inadequate diets. But as just stated, when there are too many hot chemical toxins circulating through the liver, it overheats the liver, which in turn makes you angry. Just ask any woman who suffers from PMS. The liver overheats right before the menstrual cycles do, which is what makes them so angry during that time. But then, once the menstrual cycle is over and the liver cools down, the emotions also cool back down to normal. As a result, many of the kids we see today are walking around with very hot, angry livers. No wonder they're so angry and they can't control their emotions. Then, on top of all this, if the child goes to bed late, many other imbalances begin. Going to bed past 10 o'clock at night makes the liver even hotter, and it weakens the endocrine glands, which is the system of glands that make the hormones, like the thyroid or the adrenal glands, or the ovaries or the testes. Now, these glands are very delicately balanced, and they need the hours of rest before midnight to rejuvenate themselves. And the ancient doctors of India said that this is a fundamental law of nature, that human beings should be asleep when the sun goes down and awake either before or as the sun's coming up. And breaking this very basic law of nature exhausts the glands. You feel tired, lethargic, and depressed the next day because these glands are now struggling to make their happy hormones. And in fact, walking outside as the sun comes up helps to establish one's circadian rhythms. This allows us to get sleepy at night as more melatonin is automatically released once the sunlight enters the pupils early in the morning. And just being in the sunlight increases serotonin by 800%. Serotonin, don't forget, is what the SSRIs are trying to keep in circulation. So just getting out in the sun every day will help this, and without the toxicity and the side effects of the SSRIs. Remember that old adage, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. So many of our patients feel so much better when they fix their digestion, go to bed by 10, eat a wholesome, healthy diet, and get out early in the sun every morning. Many of our patients are vegetarian and do not consume any milk or milk products. Now, the ancient doctors of India stated that you need some animal protein every day in your diet. So if you're a vegetarian, then your animal protein will come from milk and milk products. But if there's no milk products in your diet, you run the risk of losing your stores of vitamin B12, which could also cause depression. And don't forget, your adrenal and sex hormones are made out of cholesterol, and cholesterol comes from an animal. And your thyroid gland makes its hormones out of animal protein as well. So if there are no milk products in the diet, then there won't be enough raw materials to make these important hormones, which could potentially result in depression. So many of our patients who present with depression have a weakness in the thyroid and the adrenal glands, since the hormones produced by these two glands make us feel very upbeat and enthusiastic about life. Many people are giving up animal milk, such as cow's or goat's milk, in favor of plant-based milks. Now, while this might be okay if you're allergic to these animals' milks, you might be interested to know that animal milk is the only food which can make Ojas the same day it is taken, in fact, almost immediately when it is consumed. Any other food you can think of takes about a month to make Ojas as it slowly makes its way through each of those 7 tissues. And always keep up your stores of Ojas. It gets depleted with over-exercise, overwork, burning the candle at both ends, stress, too much sexual activity, too much bleeding or diarrhea, lack of absorption of nutrients, and a deficient diet. So if you keep overworking without rejuvenating your body with proper rest, you'll run the risk of depleting your Ojas and weakening your endocrine glands, which could ultimately result in depression. If you have to work long hours during the week, try to spend one whole day on the weekend just resting, eating healthy foods, sitting in the sun, taking naps, and allowing your body to rejuvenate and reinvigorate itself after pushing it so hard all week. But here's the good news. We have a huge arsenal of herbs in Ayurveda which can strengthen the weak endocrine glands, remedies to restore the friendly bacteria in the gut, and many herbs to cool down the heat in the liver. We also have a wide variety of antidepressant herbs which have been used for thousands of years before the use of the pharmaceutical SRIs. We even have herbal formulas to build up your Ojas. So hopefully by following these guidelines, you or your loved ones will never have to suffer depression, which can decrease your quality of life tremendously. Thank you.